Hey fam, welcome to Punks for Progress. I'm Reverend Aaron. This here is a fam chat. I've got a number of members of the P4P fam over here waiting patiently. Let's jump over here to where they are. Nope, they're over here actually. Sorry, I almost went to the wrong place. Here we are. How about let's just everybody introduce yourself and starting with Indiana. How's that?
Okay, I'm Price Nash of Critical Thought Critique and Punks for Progress, Indiana. Hi.
Word.
Hi, I'm Kate with CTC and Punks for Progress, as well as various other organizations in Indianapolis.
Fantastic. And
Hi, I didn't know you were going to give me an introduction. Sorry.
Of course,
I'm
you're
so
here.
Man, I don't know what I'm from or I know I'm on planet Earth.
SoCal Shan, come on now. So we're going to discuss a few things today. We're going to discuss a lot about revolutionary leftist perspectives on the fucking Biden administration, right? We're going to discuss big tech and sort of its hold over our fucking communal spaces, right? Our community spaces. And the Chauvin trial began. So we're going to discuss that some too. But I think what I'll do is I'm going to shoot it over to you, Price Nash. So, and to get us kicked off on the Biden discussion. How's that sound?
Well, I'll try. So he's been in office, 2 months now? And he has illegally bombed Syria. He said he was going to pull it out of the Yemen conflict, which is a bunch of bullshit, which you can actually decipher from the announcement itself, much like in the style of Obama, where he never actually said he was going to close Guantanamo Bay, for example. He just got us thinking that. So what else? I think one of you told me they just reopened a kiddie jail or two that was closed under Trump.
And closed because it was on, let me say real quick, it was closed because it was on toxic waste. It was built on a toxic waste dump.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Go fuck out of here. So then he also
created like Indianapolis and only build jails on toxic waste if they're for grown-ups. Which is what the city of Indianapolis has recently done with their new jail.
We only have the most humane and environmentally friendly death camps in Indiana. And he promised he will not go after the Saudis for the Khashoggi murder, where they chopped the guy and put into pieces and all that. And I think there might be a few other things I'm forgetting, but the list just goes on. And I feel vindicated at this point a little bit in suggesting that the newer, slicker Trump that everyone is so worried about could very well be Biden.
Yeah, you were speculating that pretty early on, because all of us on P4P, I think we were all in agreement that, like, what's really, like, from the beginning of Trump, what's really terrifying is if we get an intelligent, focused, real deal fascist, knowing, like a person with a grasp on history, and wow, that would be terrifying. Now, look, Biden kind of meets a lot of those, descriptors, right?
His style is turning out very Trump-like, in my opinion. Just the way he talks and presents himself.
Yeah, the only difference is he's willing to, read whatever fascist nonsense his speechwriters write out for him instead of like uh, babbling inanely for half an hour and repeating himself.
True.
Well, and let's see. What was it? I don't tweet that often, and don't follow me. Um, but what did I tweet earlier? It was relevant to this discussion.
You got blocked by Ben Horton.
Oh yeah, I got.
I saw that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, huh?
Nice.
The far-right media pretends that Biden has made, quote, sweeping and disastrous changes to U.S. border policy. The reality is he's fully perpetuating the Trump administration's child separation policies and violence against refugees. Hashtag kids in cages. Hashtag blue MAGA.
Yeah.
He literally said, "Don't come here. Stay there. We're not going to let you in." That's what he said.
Blue MAGA, I think, is also like really fitting when you like even just think about like his old campaign slogan, right? Like his whole slogan was "Build Back Better," and I was like, is that materially or like semantically any different from "Make America Great Again," right? Like, there was a time in which like America was good. We got to build back to that. To that pre-lapsarian moment, right? Like,
and the people that embrace that notion are like, we're talking shit on Make America Great Again. It's because they could own the orange man or whatever. Like, and then they turn around and with Biden, it's like, oh yeah, we gotta restore democracy. Like, what fucking democracy are you talking about? I understand we have a form of representative. We have a republic that like has a component of it that one could describe as democratic. I mean, we get to pick the people who, administer our subjugation.
Right, you get to pick your misrepresentatives every year.
But democracy? That's what we're all striving here as anarchists and communists for. That's what we're striving for, is actual democracy. Because it doesn't exist and never has in this fucking disgusting America, man. Fuck, man. And it's, I don't know, I guess I would say, in a lot of ways, at first, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to what Biden was doing because I wasn't expecting anything other than, hey, I'm going to keep doing what Trump's going to do, but I'm going to like make it look like it's for like, altruistic reasons somehow. That's what liberals do, right? But we in 2021, we are so fucking. I'm astounded. It's like we live in a goddamn Philip K. Dick novel, man.
Oh yeah.
We have this amazing technology. We're sitting here as anarchists and communists trying to build a revolution underground against the goddamn fucking fascist imperialist American state. Meanwhile, there's a deadly pandemic outside. If you go outside, you could catch a disease and die. So we're all wearing masks. And that pandemic is real, and please wear a fucking mask when you go outside. In fact, the CDC recently, not so long ago, suggested 2 masks. I have been doing that when I go to the grocery store. So don't misunderstand at all anyone who may be watching this. The pandemic is real. But again, it's hard not to get depressed about how truly fucking dystopian it is. It's like everything that we were saying is going to happen if we don't right now, it's here. And Biden is he's a fucking fascist, man. And I don't buy into this, it's hyperbolic shit. He's a full-on fascist, man. He's there defending, dude, the cops have not stopped fucking attacking leftists. Fucking cop ran over a fucking protester in LA yesterday and shot protesters. And one of them, thankfully, had some kind of thing in their head that made microwaves draw to them magnetically. And so pig took a literal microwave oven to the face. But because Kamala Harris is the vice president doesn't mean he's not fascist, man. I don't know. You tell me, fam. Am I being hyperbolic to label him as such?
Kamala is a cop, so what? I don't even like.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
She
I was
wrote
gonna
some
say Kamala
horrible
Harris being
policy
vice
in
president
California. Or made some.
seems like kind of a.
She
Go
made
ahead.
some horrible decisions. I'm sorry, not policy, but like with our prisons and shit. Like she just loved to open shit up. So
Here's a question, fam. Here's a question that I think is on topic. Let's be real and let's maybe introspect a little. Can you come up with a specific example of something in your life that has changed because Trump's gone and Biden's in? Honest question.
The left wing movement in Indiana is basically totally gone. That's changed. But that's basically it for me.
well, I mean, my daughter has rights. That's kind of important. That's what I was gonna say. This is what the Democrats do. Biden reinstalls or extends, I'm not sure which, DACA, and then opens up 2 more concentration camps, right? It's like, yay! So you're not looking at over here, right? It's that kind of a thing. That is the only difference, I think.
I will say, as much as I hate to admit it, that I'm not sure these vaccinations would be rolling out as quickly if Trump got reelected.
That too.
So, maybe maybe I'm going to be kicked out of anarchy, okay? But I voted for Biden. And fuck off if you got issue with it. But it was
First time I
one
never voted
reason
for a president.
only. I was
You're
convinced
fired.
he would fucking do this with COVID. I was convinced he would address COVID. That's it. That's it, man. Like, I want to go outside again, man. I want to fucking hang with people. I want to march in the street and not worry that I'm going to fucking get sick or get some of my comrades sick. But
I think that would be handled more, but in California, I'm kind of safe to say that if they were going to vote for Biden anyway. Happens every fucking time. It always goes Democrat. So that's why I didn't vote for president, because I had a real hard time. He's accused of sexual harassment, and I'm going to vote for him. I'm a fucking hypocrite calling Trump out, right? So it just didn't feel okay with me to vote at all for president.
and I deeply respect that too, Shan. And it's like I just had my voting rights restored this year, and I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to vote, and but we also had a person run locally that had close associations with the Proud Boys, and
Oh shit.
Eddie Lorton was his name. He fucking lost. And fuck you, Eddie Lorton. You fucking fascist piece of shit. Fuck you, homie. Fuck you. Hit me up. I'll debate you on anything. Anything, Eddie fucking Lorton. Fuck you. Anyway. Trigger a little bit. But yeah, literally that was the thing. I was totally convinced. I was like, okay, great. You restored my voting rights. What the fuck do I care? I'm not into fucking picking somebody new to beg for scraps from, okay? But Eddie Lorton running and his associations with the Proud Boys and COVID. Because if that, it's the one thing I can tangibly point to, I think, and say that it's different, is that we have the bully pulpit is telling you to wear a mask now. It means more people are wearing them.
That's true.
Yeah.
I just saw
It's
a
funny.
thing today about someone did a study about the white. I don't want to say it was white extremist. It was more like Karen violence, which that's extreme. I'm not trying to belittle that, but it's not them just directing it at people they don't know, their neighbors and everything. But what the study was saying is that how many times these people have invoked Trump's name when they're doing their assaults or harassment. And I don't know the number because I didn't finish watching the clip, but
I'd
yeah,
say there's no way to
even,
calculate the number. I have stood on the street so many times, and every time those fascists did anything, they either said USA or Trump. Like really, that's what they said every time they did that shit. USA, Trump.
USA means white privilege, white power. That's all it means to me, because what you're yelling that at me, and I was born here too. So what the fuck does that mean? It means nothing but white nationalism, white supremacy, right? I guess. Other than being at a sporting event with another fucking country, why the fuck would you chant that? It makes no sense to me.
I also hope the other team win.
I don't even understand it in sports, because sports is about camaraderie and having fun and stuff to me. So that's why I hate that competitive shit.
So they say. So they tell us.
It's not. That's why I don't like it.
So I have a question. Forecast anyone for next 4 to 8 years, say?
Oh, my personal forecast is that like one, the ice shit is here to stay unless like a mass movement is built surrounding it. In terms of like inter-imperialist war, it's looking very grim, considering like the U.S.'s continued like aggression in Syria and Yemen, as well as like they're leaving Afghanistan, right, like doing the whole hard reset, and essentially just like it's looking bad. I very much see like an inter-imperialist war coming fairly soon. Maybe not in 4 years.
There is
almost an inevitability, like within the next decade.
Yeah, there's so much groundwork I think that's being laid for another one of those massive shifts in sort of like World War One, like the chaos of World War One in a way. Where World War II starts with a very specific date, and it's this thing, and it was just to do this and whatever, right? World War One is it's a lot hard. I mean, it's capitalists fucking trying to figure out how to divide up the world, right? But like, I think that the like anti-China rhetoric is alarming, and I don't think that it's just a sort of remnant of Trump's rhetoric. I think that the capitalist imperialist class are way pushing hard against China. It's not a defense against China or a critique of China, whatever. It's just I see you, Western imperialism. I see what you're doing, and I also think that like on the maybe little more tinfoil hat tip, I think that Russia has much to gain. The wealthier elements and influences in Russia have much to gain from a conflict between the U.S. and China. And it just, and coupled with all the very much more specific stuff that Kate just outlined, what are we going to do to combat that, fam? A few thousand of us march. Like, I remember marching against the first Desert Storm when we brought out massive fucking numbers at that time. And that war ran its course exactly how the Western imperialists wanted it to the whole time. And we don't even have that. We don't have even a remnant of that foundation. I guess the one thing missing from this fucking Philip K. Dick novel is massive global fucking warfare, right?
Yeah.
And if we have another world war, it's not just China's the main, but Venezuela, Cuba, and I don't even want to think about that. This country's had a boner for destroying Cuba forever.
So the U.S. military, you may not have heard, met with the Taliban a few months ago and agreed to withdraw all troops by May 1st. And the Taliban is like already sort of supposedly mobilizing to keep us to that. And there could be like a sort of a Tet offensive if we don't. And it's really, I'm really interested to see what happens. I think it's very likely it could be a hard reset to the whole war and a bloodbath will happen. But if not, then, my hopes and dreams have been for years now that the U.S. empire is going to draw to a close, and maybe that would be an indication of drawing down if we actually ever do get out of Afghanistan. It'd be the first time in forever we have withdrawn from a country like since Vietnam or Grenada or something like that.
I'll believe it when I see it. Where are we going to get our heroin?
Good point.
I thought the same thing.
Also, I just want to say that it's either U.S. empire is weakening or U.S. empire seeks a different strategy altogether. One that's not so situated explicitly on a definitive regime change and installing puppet governments, but rather one of just permanent destabilization of areas.
I think we've already been on that. I think we've already shifted to that strategy. It seems Syria, starting with Libya.
Right. And in that case, if anything, for empire, this is a massive success. The aerospace industry and the military industrial complex all gets paid. And nothing about the U.S. empire's sphere of influence in the Middle East has actually changed out of their favor, right?
Industry will get a lot of money too. They already do. Through fucking war. And the whole thing is we have no business warring at all when the climate's saying, fuck you humans, get the fuck off of me, I'm not going to work anymore for you.
I know.
That's a big contributor.
Yeah, I feel like the military industrial complex is probably destroying the planet more than anything else.
And they create the pathway for the corporations too. So it's a double whammy kind of a thing.
Yeah, like the oil connection from oil to military, definitely there.
And we go in and rebuild stuff, but it's not the people from that country. It's American corporation and company doing it.
Yeah, Halliburton and the like, right? That comes in and gets paid 400 times the amount it would actually take to buy a fork, or to USB port.
These services, I mean, even these big corporate companies hire private security firms to protect them and their assets, and in the meantime, they're abusing and murder. It's kind of like it's like the man camps here. Well, it's the same. It's the same all over the world with that. It doesn't just happen here, you know.
Yeah, what was the name of that firm that Buttigieg worked for? I can't remember their name. They were a consulting
McKinsey?
firm that went in. Yeah, that's it.
What was it again?
But they're one of those.
Say it again.
It's called like the McKinsey Institute or something like that. I know it's McKinsey something.
It's just one of those like hire to fire type fucking firms that nobody would hire outside of a war zone, really, and that's part of the whole capitalist circle jerk that goes on in destabilizing countries.
I'm sorry. I thought of Dog the Bounty Hunter. It's like they are. It's Dog the Bounty Hunter. Remember when his big thing to go to Mexico? I don't know who the fuck it was he was trying to bust, but that's what these private security firm things remind me of. These are the kind of people that they have.
Well, and the fact that Mercs is a thing. Mercs is a thing, fam. There's real mercs in the world. It's not just like watching a Riddick movie. And of course, I think no Philip K. Dick novel would be complete without mercs, right? There's got to be fucking mercenaries. I mean, I did a video. This is another thing that really does genuinely freak me out, man. It's not. This is unprecedented, I think. But I did that video of Newsmax that was running a fucking charity to fucking donate to mercenaries. Not to mercenary foundations, but like not to raise money for military, which fuck them too, but it's, I don't know. I don't have words to describe it. It's just dystopia.
It is.
Oh yeah, and I just thought of this, but like various different not only the government of Duterte in the Philippines, but also like America, which has a bunch of military bases there, as well as some other nations that have sold the Philippines arms, are currently on a campaign of massacring communists. The Duterte regime declared kill them all, just like I think a week ago or something, in response to
the morning of Bloody Sunday,
like seizure of territory in their People's War. So yeah, imperialism is not going fucking anywhere under Biden, of all people.
I'm actually 15 pages into a 4-page piece that I'm writing for One People's Project. Like literally, I pitched it to Daryl thinking it would probably be about 4 or 5 pages, and it's at 15 right now, and I still have to write the conclusion. But it's called Cyclical Transitions in Fascist Focus. I can't remember what the subtitle of it is, but it's basically, I wanted to do an examination of the way the state focused on street level fascists and, under the Reagan administration, and the way the street level fascists viewed the state under the Reagan administration, and the transition in those relationships to the Clinton Foundation, or the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton administration. Right, because under Reagan, I'm arguing that he was a demagoguing figure. Well, and then I should say, and then I want to compare and contrast that to the transition from Trump to Reagan, and try and see if I find similarities in there. And then there's a shit ton of them. The fact that Reagan was a demagoguing figurehead, a demagogue who began his campaign in I can't remember the name of the city in Mississippi, on doing a states' rights speech. But the city in Mississippi is where the 3 civil rights activists were murdered by the coalition of Klan and cops. The Mississippi Burning movie. So he kicks off his 1980 campaign there and gives a speech about states' rights. I mean, I know I don't have to remind you, fam, of the relevance of the notion of states' rights. That was the nonsense that the Confederacy used to, they were fighting for states' rights. And it's like, well, what states' right? The right to own other people and subjugate black people and do anything they want to them and violently. Anyway, so he facilitated. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I will say that's not actually explicitly Confederate. Like the states' rights as rhetoric arises in contemporary politics with the campaign of Barry Goldwater, which Hillary Rodham Clinton was.
I'm a proud Goldwater girl, she said. Right.
Right. And like basically states' rights was always used to just like be a dog whistle to mean like anti-civil rights, right? Like saying let the states decide doesn't mean anything. Like what are you talking about? Like we asked you if you believe that like black people should be able to eat in the same restaurant as a white person, and you answered like let the states decide. What do you? That doesn't answer anything. Like it means no.
Yeah.
But that's where states' rights comes from, as well as that post hoc bullshit justification of like the Civil War being on states' rights. Like,
right.
That was obviously never true.
And Reagan understood all of that when he gave that speech in Mississippi, right? And but what you look at, so then what happens in the 80s and 90s? Actually, I'm not quite sure, and you don't have to tell us. But I don't know if you're old enough to remember, Kate, what went down with Nazi boneheads in the 80s and early 90s. But I think that they were very much facilitated. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said I was born a decade later.
Okay. So, but they were definitely, I think, we remember, I know Shannon and Price remember, Geraldo and the Jerry Springer and the Oprah episodes with the Boneheads and all the violence. And there was all kinds of drive-by shootings that they committed and all kinds of outright murders and just a lot of fucking, but and then what happens is the state under the Reagan and Bush years, they do nothing to stem any of that. But the second the Clinton administration comes in is when Ruby Ridge kicks off, and then the Waco thing, and then they actually really start targeting far-right activists, which I argue in my piece was not to suppress them, but to further radicalize them and to sustain that anti-politics, anti-government sentiment, that far-right, paranoid fervor that they could call up with their stochastic terrorist talking points and whenever they want. But they're playing with fire, right? Because so occasionally they got a Night of the Long Knives that shit. And I think that that's what the transition into the Clinton administration was. Is like, you guys have been really useful to us maintaining the capitalist imperialist status quo for the last 8 or 12 years. But we're going to go with a different focus, and we need to make sure. I mean, by that time, they're doing the sovereign citizen stuff. They're killing cops and shit. So they're like, yo, let's rein that in a little bit. But we don't want to completely suppress it, right? And so I think we see hints of that with the transition from, especially with what happened in the Capitol on January 6th, and the way the Biden administration seems like we don't know fully yet what they're going to do about all that. But I think we have very good reason to suspect at this point that it's going to be similar to that sort of almost police state-esque, draconian, oppressive, across the board measures, right? In response to the people that the Trump administration, the previous administration, the modern version of the Reagan administration facilitated and stoked. I'll say this, and then I'll kind of shut up, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. But like, I think the one thing that the QAnons say that's accurate is that Q is a fucking state mechanism. I think it's a fully state-run fucking op to turn them into these fucking absolutely brainwashed stochastic terrorists. But they got to rein it in a little. And so they're going to Night of the Long Knives them, I think. But in the process, they're going to use it as justification to target us. Because we're the real threat, right? The left. Anyway. So that's the kind of the gist of the piece that I'm writing. And I think it's kind of relevant to the topic, so I thought I would kind of describe it a little bit.
I have heard people on the progressive left talk about that and how I think there's going to be this crackdown, or that there's already a crackdown going on, and rhetoric on counterinsurgents tactics. And I can't say that I randomly put it on PBS NewsHour the other night, and well, it was actually like a couple of weeks ago probably, but they had this guy from the FBI on there. The banner, like under his name, literally said former FBI counterintelligence, which might well have just said like former COINTELPRO
Right.
operative, and he was literally saying we gotta break out the counterinsurgents tactics across the board, all across the country, to make sure another January 6th doesn't happen and all that.
And PBS pushed back hard on that, right? PBS being the bastion of, leftist socialism. I imagine. I didn't watch it. I'm asking, right? Like they pushed back really hard on that and said how terrible that would be, right?
Oh yeah, of course not. The Walter Cronkite factor of none on that one.
I don't mean to laugh.
So
it is terrifying.
And yeah, and I don't know if you have, but haven't you heard like some rumors on Facebook, Twitter, wherever about people being like visited by the feds and shit, like leftists,
Yes.
Yeah.
And not rumors. Actually, legit comrades that I followed for some time going, I had a knock on my door and they wanted to ask me questions. And then watching fucking a bunch of like people who don't do shit but get on Twitter, then start fucking badjacketing the person who got visited. It's
No
ugly,
shit.
man. It's ugly. And names don't matter, man. And you don't have to believe me, but I think like these are comrades that I fucking trust, man, that I know have like put in some fucking like made sacrifices, yo. And dude, there was so much going on. A lot of people calling people cops and shit going on, dude. And I maintain, I've said this before, and I wrote it in the last piece I wrote for CTC, that these things do not manifest from any type of leftist form of organizing. We don't there's nothing built into socialism or anarchism or communism that makes you then badjack and shit talk your comrades. I think that that's something that gets done to us from reactionaries and from the mechanisms of fucking imperialism. They stoke that in us. And they use our very justified fears of COINTELPRO. They use our knowledge of COINTELPRO to divide us. I can't prove any of that. I can't prove that any of that. I could be completely wrong, and maybe it's just something in leftism where we infight naturally, regardless of the fact that I find nothing in any of our stated theories or histories that would draw me to conclude that we would do that to each other. I can point to a lot of things in history where, like we keep saying, COINTELPRO, that's exactly what they did to the Panthers and other leftist groups. It's like, you know your homie's a cop, right? Like, and it's easier to just fucking do it on Twitter. It's so much easier for the fucking man to do that to us now. Because they don't have to physically infiltrate anything.
Totally.
Exactly. I was just about to say that theory that I've been out for the last couple of months is like, I don't actually think our like left-wing organized spaces are like as infiltrated as a lot of people would like lead you to believe. Like, no doubt if you have an organization that grows to like 300 members, one of them's a cop. Like, no doubt. But like most of like our cadres, for example, have like 7 people, and many of whom have known each other for years, right? Like these people aren't cops, like,
Right.
And like, you know, that's why I think like a lot of this like bad jacketing stuff makes most sense to me, that it's coming from like Twitter and exterior sources rather than like, you know, whispers within the actual org itself. Not to say that there aren't like active bad jacketers out there that are in organizations, but like, yeah, like I think you're right.
And no, and that is such an incredibly important clarification, Kate. Thank you. Because look, it's conceivable that one of the dozen or so people in the P4P4 fam could be a cop, I guess. But we just have gotten to know each other so much more. There's bonds there, and there's levels of trust that are built over time. And we toot, I guess, I don't know, but we're experienced leftists, most of us here. And we're a little more like can spot that shit. And I think that the same can be said for, like you just said, the average group is what, 7 to 12 people, really. And they're interacting with each other regularly, and so much harder to infiltrate that as a cop. But and I guess I would say, to back that a little bit, like, and what you were saying, like when I see that on Twitter, basically, if I see you on Twitter calling somebody a cop, I just kind of go, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. First of all, don't do that. Don't do that. Even if they are, like, you better come with a shit ton of receipts if you're going to publicly fucking call somebody a cop. Fuck you. Fuck you for that. Fuck you. Don't do that, man.
Like I'm another organization that I work on. I've been like designing policy surrounding collective harm and accountability and abuse and conflict. And one of the notes in it, like about like snitching and bad jacketing, which is like, if you're gonna call somebody a snitch, you have to have like evidence. Like, right. If you make an accusation without evidence, you're done. Like, no, you can't fucking do that. Like, that's,
you're putting people's life in danger when you snitch jacket or cop jacket them. It's exactly. That's a legit thing, and because every bit of that history, I mean, it was invented by COINTELPRO that we know of, or at least that I know of, but it was so they would kill each other, not just to affect their ability to organize, but that they would kill each other so that they don't have to go in and murder them all like they did Fred Hampton, right? That gets messy for them. So,
right, they don't want to create martyrs. They want to create like infighting and division in its own right. Like, it's, you know, that's something that I thought was actually great about that movie, Judas and the Black Messiah. They like kind of bring this up, and like I think Martin Sheen plays Herbert Hoover. No, that's right.
J. Edgar, and I'll say he plays him not that well. I think it's the worst performance in the movie.
Yeah, it's just Martin Sheen's worst role, but he does say something correct in it, which is like, you know, sending Huey Newton to prison made him a celebrity, you know.
Yep. And he did.
Yeah, it totally did. Notwithstanding,
as well as.
Go ahead, Shan.
I'm sorry, I cut Kate off. Did you want to finish? Notwithstanding.
Oh, I was just saying, notwithstanding any like more nefarious behavior of like Huey Newton toward the tail end of the 70s. That is it.
I just was gonna say that it also makes the FBI look bad, and they don't want to look bad in the vast public, right? They want to be the good guy because it's a good cop, right?
Right. They want to go on PBS
To
and
uphold
and
the-
be celebrated for the tyranny that they're going to fucking
Right.
inflict on us.
Totally.
It's like when cops rescue someone, or they're doing their fucking job. Why are they a hero? I'm sorry. They literally are paid to do that, not the other shit. But whatever.
And Kate,
That's what it said.
J. Edgar recognizing that their demonization of Huey further, embolden his celebrity or whatever. They have to understand that like, look, I mean, everybody, a lot of people in this country know the name Q Shaman. And they can keep us up to date on his trials. And I just think that it's going to further, I said from the start, that just gave Hitler his opportunity to fucking write Mein Kampf. Some of these people, when they're going to do time, and they're going to write their Mein Kampfs, and they're going to become that hero on the right, to the right. And I just think that the imperialist powers know that.
Right.
Like, they're not fucking up. It's not a mistake. It's not an accident, right?
Absolutely not. Because, like, for new African political prisoners, for example, like, they're put in prison to, like, try and annihilate them and, like, separate them from their, like, loved ones and their ability to, like, coordinate and organize on the outside. Whereas, like, these people likely won't even be treated as political prisoners. Because, as it turns out, like, being white and Republican is apolitical, and it's only, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so they're going to have a lot more like freedom of movement and ability to produce something like that, rather than like, on like George Jackson, where like,
Right.
And
he
they're
would
gonna
flee
have, and they're gonna have them.
prior.
I don't think a single one of them has been in solitary. I haven't heard any reports of any of
That's
those
what I was
fucks being in
saying. They're not
solitary.
solitary.
Oh no, they won't go to solitary. White people aren't.
Right.
Yeah, they're gonna have a much bigger megaphone.
Yep. I mean, they'll have somebody pay for their phone card. And there won't have to be a grassroots GoFundMe to pay for it. And it'll be unlimited minutes on that phone card. And for people who don't know, phone cards in prison, it's a fortune. You could lose your house in a year paying for phone calls if your family's locked up. I mean, I'm not exaggerating, man. It's one of the most disgusting extortion rackets in the prison system is those fucking phones, man. But if you're poor, you can't talk to your family, man. And if you do, like, the average phone call can be $30, $40, $50, man, for 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're aware. Indiana is one of the most expensive states for phone calls, as well as emails. I think it costs like $20 to get like 10 email credits. And email is limited to like, I think like 10,000. No, not 10,000 characters. Like 2,000 characters. It's quite short.
And I wonder if they charge more for stamps, Because I know commissary, everything is like, all the prices are jacked up. But I wonder if they jack up the prices for postal stamps.
Are stamps money in Indiana? Okay. Are stamps money in the DOC in the Indiana? In Nevada, stamps are your money. It's not like you see in the old movies. It's cigarettes, but how many smoke you got for whatever. It's stamps. Like that's the currency for exchange. You can fucking they can violate an inmate in Nevada for having too many stamps.
Oh wow!
because it
Wow.
implies selling drugs or whatever, right? And they'll only sell you so much, so it's really easy to monitor if they tear at somebody's house and find that, their stamp collection is larger than their commissary numbers, you can be violated.
Right. I don't know about this, but it could very well. But also in terms of drugs, selling and distributing drugs, that's all done by the fucking guards. Like the prisoners.
Of course.
Like it's all done by the fucking guards. Like, no fucking.
I mean, come on, people out there watching. You really think inmates can get it in without help from the guards? It's just, especially in our modern prisons. They're high tech. They're searched from fucking 5 times before you get anywhere. And how much can you really cram up your ass? Just give me a break, man. It's just not. There's only one way all that shit can get in there.
Right.
And it's not a departure from what the government does.
We're
The CIA are drug dealers. Our government are drug dealers. I mean, we were talking about Afghanistan earlier, and it's like I said, and I didn't get much pushback from y'all. My first thought was, yeah, but where are we going to get our heroin from? I'm not seeing much reason to think they're going to leave Afghanistan, right? It's drug dealers.
Where'd we get the cocaine for crack?
Oh yeah, from a dude that lives in Compton. A dude in Compton was able, to get fucking, 500 kilos of fucking cocaine brought in. Sure.
Yeah, it was all death. The CIA wasn't involved at all.
Nah. That's not what the Contras was about at all. No. Give me a fucking break.
There literally were hearings about it that people like to forget. My dad, I'm sorry, Dad, but he goes, well, I don't know about that. And I'm like, Oliver North, like, what? You don't remember all those hearings? Because I do. I was a kid and I didn't even want to fucking care about it. Anyway.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Like, I think there's a lot of reason to. Like, we're basically doing a lot of speculating on what to expect from Biden right now. It's 50 days, 51 days, 50 days. But I am interested.
It's off to such a great start, though.
Oh, I know. But I'm interested to see what happens in the futures of these people that are gonna that have been charged. These absolute pieces of shit that have been charged by this imperialist piece of shit state for what they did on the 6th. I'm really curious to see what becomes of them in the next year or two. And then in terms of, you had asked a lot way earlier, Price, what I thought would happen in the next 4 to 8 years is, I think in 2024, is that the next one? That's the midterm, right? 2024?
2022.
Thank you. Wow.
Oh,
2022 is the midterm. It's gonna shift all the way to the right. That's my thinking. Because
that's usually
what are the Democrats doing? The Democrats are out here going, we're really, really right wing, except we hashtag stuff that right wingers hate sometimes.
And we still talk shit about Trump.
Yeah, right.
Right. The Democratic platform is still essentially like just orange man bad, whereas like the Republican platform is going to be the Democrats promised you $2,000 and didn't give it to you.
They promised you minimum wage and you didn't get it.
Right. I know what's going to be more compelling to the undecided voter.
It's still gonna kind of be fuck Trump, fuck Hillary. It's gonna be the same thing,
right,
as the last 8 years.
Well, and I'll tell you, like all the headlines I'm seeing, like from Newsmax and stuff, it's the massive out of control death and chaos at the border. Okay, because his radical agenda and changes from and his abandonment of the Trump fucking he's not. I mean, there's no change. Biden made one speech where he said something about something change in border policy. All I've seen is a complete perpetuation, and like we said earlier, a reopening of camps that were closed on a toxic fucking wayside. And so, but what that's going to effectively do is further radicalize these already full-on radicalized right-wing terrorists. Like, and I think they're going to rally behind these pieces of shit that are going to do time for what happened on the 6th. I think Q ain't going nowhere.
It's infiltrated the world. It's not just here. Fucking Australia, man.
Yep. Did you get a chance to watch that? There, 60 Minutes Australia just did like a 25-minute piece on its influence in Australia.
I haven't watched it yet, but it's in Britain too. This is a global fucking model type thing for the right wing to mobilize people.
Right. I think the next 4 years are going to be the mass base building of the right wing, and then like 2022, 2024 are going to be their like just thorough stomp victory lap. Because like the Democrats are controlled opposition that won't do anything, right?
Right.
Right. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, they're waiting. They're doing the reuniting families, but they can't find the families.
Thousands
right?
of them.
Because
thousands
they
of
waited
families
too
that they have
fucking
no
long.
idea.
I'm not talking 50 days. I'm saying why asshole was. They could have fucking done something about that. They didn't. It's gross.
So we spent an hour on that topic, fam. And I think unless any of you guys have more further thoughts on the transition to Biden, we had a couple other topics we were going to discuss, right? Price?
Is the left going to sleep? Is the left going to sleep now because Biden's in office?
So I think the short answer is no. I think the short answer is no. And here's why I say this. Because people that were really, 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 really freaked out because of Trump, that doesn't necessarily mean they were the left. I think we know that. We've seen that a lot, like the way liberals freak out on us a lot. They really, really hate Trump, but they would say, like, so a lot of those people that were not our comrades or allies. And yes, I think we all knew that a lot of the fucking hashtag resistance was going to hang up and go home. And I think there was a lot of talk on the left about, well, what do we do when that happens? And I always kind of went, good, like go, because you people were really no use to us all along. Just hating Trump and sharing things all the time. We needed more than that. And maybe I'm being overly dismissive of them and the role of collectivism and stuff, but like, I don't think any solid, committed revolutionary leftists are any less committed to revolutionary leftism today as they were 52 days ago. I think a lot of liberals are going home, though.
I agree.
I do agree with you. The point in which I would diverge is that, like, the actual left was never going to go anywhere. And I think we knew that before. But, like, in terms of, like, mobilization, getting people out into the streets to support anything, it's going to be a nightmare.
That's a good point.
Absolutely. Next couple of, because all of the liberals and, like, those types of contacts that we've, like, developed over the last couple of years will never come back out. Not until another Republican's in office that they're going to be like, oh, this war makes me mad. Not the 4 other wars that were going on when my guy was in office. So while the left isn't going to sleep, the counterinsurgency and the graveyard of social movement still ring very true in terms of like the Democratic Party seizing power.
And then now we got the movement for a People's Party playing assist.
Please don't do me any favors.
Okay, the subject dropped. Dropping the subject.
Oh, you don't have to drop the subject. I just, you said, People's Party for the assist. I'm saying to them, please don't do me any assist. I don't need their version of favors.
Right.
And I'm not. That's not to say that everybody that's like embraced this People's Party thing is some fucking worthy of being shit on or whatever. A lot of them are. A lot of them are some full of shit motherfuckers.
I will say one thing. I do think younger generation of who would call themselves progressives or even liberals, they'll be in the street. That's who you'll find in the streets for police brutality, for hate crimes against Asians, for that's when you're gonna find it. So I think that's a good thing that came out of Trump, is that we did build some networking with certain groups that are coming more radicalized as they organize. So that's what we want.
And I would also say, Shan, that like I think we've observed that millennials and Gen Zers, there's like per capita are far further to the left than Gen X, and of course far further than the Boomers. There's way more millennials that are like
there's a big difference
and have embraced real leftism, not some progressive. I went to Lollapalooza twice, and that's why I'm a leftist. It's they've read Marx, they've read Kropotkin and shit.
Of the Boomer and Gen X generation, though, I hate to admit it's partly my generation, but it fucking is, and some millennials, because they blame Gen Z, right? And that's both liberals and right wingers that are doing that shit for cancel culture shit, and that's how this stuff gets so fucking messy, and why we get tired of saying no, look further, think more critical, and we get the frustration from the progressives and liberals for having to scream the same shit at them every few months about the exact same fucking thing, right?
So do you think that there'll be a lot more street action once we get over the main hump of COVID? Like, I think there might be like, we might feel like the left is sort of asleep, because I think that we're actually like decent people who don't want to risk people's health. So we're a little less inclined to get out in the streets and stuff. I don't know. That's a genuine question. I don't know the answer to that.
That totally, plays a part. But, if you look at just last weekend and the week prior, with the case opening up and the unfortunate anniversary for Breonna Taylor and the attacks against Asian communities here, New York, all over, and it's risen astronomically. So, that people are still going in the streets. It's, of course, not like it was in the summer. That I don't even know that the civil rights movement was like that ever. I don't know, because I was not born in an infant. So
no, there was a lot of the people that have firsthand accounts of the civil rights era. This is historic. These are historic numbers.
I remember texting my mom, "Have you ever seen anything like this? Was this what it was like?" And she's like, "No, it wasn't like this." So that's hope.
But we've definitely seen a lull, like in Indiana, extreme lull in activity, and
Year two.
But don't you think that has a lot to do
but
with
of course,
COVID, right? Like,
COVID, yeah. But now let's not forget that we've seen couple major organizations break up this past year, and I know at least three of us here were speculating that that was some kind of COINTELPRO behind that.
if not,
So there,
if not totally behind it, poking it. You know, like, ooh, look, there's some issues. We can
definitely.
stoke it here and stoke it there a little bit. Like,
I will say I've learned more about the split in one of those like groups, and I don't think COINTELPRO was really involved in that one at all. Yeah, I think MCPOC is like just kind of coincidental that it like broke around the same time as some of these other organizations, but from what I've gathered, like their reasoning, like for dissolving, like makes sense. Like it wasn't just like everyone in here is a revisionist cop except me, right? Like that's not what happened. It it was more focused on like what should our strategic goals be going forward. Is like having this particular organization having to get this together right now important or even like conducive to moving forward, you know, whereas like other organizations I think like were definitely like suspicious in terms of not I shouldn't say suspicious in that like their membership is suspicious, but in terms of the circumstances surrounding their dissolution.
you know, and this is yet another example of just how intensely toxic the whole COINTELPRO thing is. And thank you so much, Kate, for making that distinction and differentiating that, because, well, first of all, if we start even invoking, hey, was COINTELPRO involved? That's almost like pointing to some of our comrades and going, are you COINTELPRO? And maybe we shouldn't be doing that, man. Especially that's like what we were saying with cop jacketing. And here, it's so hard to find the language that's precise because look, we have to be able to make the analysis and determine if the state is fucking trying to pit us against each other because we know for a fact that that is a thing it does. But every time we indulge that, it's almost like just one degree of separation of pointing a finger at what may very well be a very, very solid comrade, you know? And so again, God, it's just so fucking.
I always think poison pen when I say COINTELPRO. So I don't know for myself.
I don't understand the reference. Poison pen.
Yeah, like you don't have to be a cop to be convinced your comrades are cops. You know, like it's the rumors can come from the outside or poison pen was when they would write letters pretending to be Panthers to Panthers. Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay. Which they did a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, the gang units do this tactic. The gang units do it. They're former. Every law agency uses this tactic in their daily practices. So to think that the feds aren't doing it when we're having mass mobilization would be short-sighted. Of course they're doing it. How they're fucking doing it this time maybe is more the question, right? If they are.
That's great you brought that up because it's not just the feds that are doing it these days. It's local law enforcement agencies and their gang task force. It's fucking DHS and the fusion centers and all that crap.
They turn neighbors against.
It's just like normal, like out in the open in some cases.
Well, did this state ever come out and go, "Oh shit, sorry for COINTELPRO"? No.
No.
Right.
And you think that every single fucking look, Department of Homeland Security has jurisdiction over every facet of human life in America. Our ports, our water systems. I mean, it's just it's staggering the jurisdiction it has. And you think that they aren't taking notes from COINTELPRO?
Yeah.
And why don't they release the prisoners? Why is Peltier still in fucking prison? We know what happened there too. I don't think they've ever admitted it though, have they? Just with the Panthers, I don't think they admitted it with AIM.
And they didn't admit it about the Panthers. It came out.
Well, yeah, they couldn't
Yeah, I
deny
was gonna
it
say.
or what it was. Yeah.
And let's be clear, it's also the 50-year anniversary of the break-in by the righteous comrades that exposed COINTELPRO to begin with. What was that, like last week? That was the anniversary of that.
That's cool. I forgot about
50
that.
years.
Yeah.
I was almost 3 years old. Getting old.
So, if there had been the public statement or speech of, yeah, we did that and it was awful, maybe we could start to think that every single law enforcement agency in the United States isn't totally embraced COINTELPRO tactics. But they didn't. Only righteous people that sacrificed much brought us that information.
They infiltrated the fucking mafia, right? I mean, that's hard to do. And they did it.
I would think.
Infiltrated and like utilized the mafia like on an international scale, right? Like, yeah, like I'm sure I don't actually have to tell you all the how the United States government involved like Lucky Luciano and shit.
Right. With all that stuff, with all the fucking, it's same thing with the Nazis, same thing with the alt-right and the militias. It's this, we arrest half of you and then fund the other half. I mean, it's not that 50-50, but like they're funding some while at the same time arresting their others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they arrest the biggest threats. They don't arrest the biggest threats to them, not the biggest threats to society. I guess that's how I put it.
Or are they the actual threat, or are they able to market them as the biggest threat?
Right, like the Black Panthers.
Like, let's get a bunch of people.
Threat.
Like, it would be really brilliant plan, and they just get a bunch of people to like pull the most ridiculous, actually truly non-threatening to state mechanisms like attack on our capital. So then we can then go, look, these are the worst. So now we got to go do all this stuff to you. We got to do it. I know it sucks, doesn't it, that we got to exchange some of our liberties for freedoms. Remember that during fucking Bush Jr. and all the Patriot Act shit?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
Tea Party is Q is the extension of the fucking Tea Party. Like, Tea Party is how these fuckers started infiltrating I'm sorry. The Congress and the Senate. You know what I'm saying? They've been working it for a long time. People want to act like right wingers are all stupid and they don't know how to organize, but they know how to fucking organize.
They got money.
Yep.
so, is the left going to sleep, fam? Have we reached a consensus?
Part of the left.
Did we answer that for everybody and figure that whole thing out?
But none of the far left is.
I think we put a nail in the coffin there.
Yeah.
Yeah. guess the conclusion is the capital L left. No, the lowercase left. Absolutely.
But I think you were also, again, astute to point out that, look, we can kind of look down our nose at hashtag resistance, but having a shit ton more people at our actions makes a difference. It really does. Like, I don't want to, I don't know, show a lack of appreciation for that real fact. Like, having thousands of people out, even if they may never come to another march again, is a lot better than 12. A lot better than 12 people. And the news
and
media
people
comes
put
and
their
asks
bodies on
us
the line.
questions more when we have thousands of people at our march. You know? You know, the Fash can go out with 3 people on the street and be featured on primetime across the fucking board by every network. But we got to bring out a few thousand to get a blurb. And it'll probably be called a riot or something, though. You know?
Vandalism and wait, what else do they say? Like when
Violence.
we hurt a building, violence. Yeah.
No.
We hurt a building.
Violence against private property.
So
Get off my lawn.
the last topic, I guess, was the role of big tech, as it were, Price.
Yeah, I was curious if y'all seen the same wave of like people crying about their YouTube videos being demonetized or being put in YouTube jail and Facebook and Twitter jail and all the big tech censorship going on of the left.
Welcome to the last 4 years of Punks for Progress. Like I don't make the videos though. I don't go on Twitter and Facebook and make videos about when we get our shit censored. Okay?
Right.
I'm just not about telling far right wing fucking assholes what they can do to hurt us. And I feel like every time someone comes out with this shit, they're fucking telling people, hey man, I was mass fucking reported by a bunch of fash and it worked. Oh, woe is me. Well, thanks for giving our enemies fucking fuel and information that they can use against us. Okay, that's where I have a problem with that. And again, this is that thing of like, I'm not trying to necessarily take away from people who are being censored and stuff because it sucks. But it's yet another example of what we need, like, of how we have to be so careful in the way we talk about shit. We have to be careful in the way we talk about who we call cops. We got to be careful about the way we talk about whether it's COINTELPRO or not. And we need to be very, very careful about the way we tell people publicly the things that are happening to us by these social media platforms. And it's a tough one, fam, because we also need people to know. Look, I am convinced, man, especially Zuck. That dude's a full-on fascist prick, man. He's all in. He's all in. I'm not as confident with YouTube in saying that, but I'm probably about 65, 70% there. These people are our fucking enemies, man. And
Oh yeah.
And especially if you're going to be making a lot of content that directly targets the fash, this platform is going to fuck with you. I'll say this right now, man. We have a fucking copyright strike against our channel because I uploaded a guillotine truck video that shows right-wingers beating the shit out of black people. And then it has context from right-wingers in the 60s beating the shit out of black people. And it shows how disgusting it is. There's text in the video that shows that we're not glorifying this, that we're adamantly against it, and we got a fucking hate speech block against us on that video.
Yeah.
I got hate speech for posting a flyer. Who's always in your neighborhood, Aaron? I
Patriot Front,
can't remember. Patriot Front. And
which was American Guard, which was
were,
originally a Klan Klaven.
They were passing out flyers at universities all throughout California, mostly southern and central, Bay Area. and I had a heading on it, like heads up, and what university, or maybe it wasn't just universities, but colleges it was found at. And someone reported it, obviously, and Facebook said that it was hate speech. And I still have a thing against me, like, that won't go away, that, like, if I get one more, like, hate speech thing, I'm done. I'm out of there. I'm out of Facebook. So
Yeah.
it's always been happening when people come up with this, oh, it's not good for the left. It's like, you know, when they're deplatforming the right. What are you they've always been doing this to us. They never have stopped. It's not, I don't notice that it's gotten any worse other than like Rose City Antifa. Like big players, that's who got deplatformed on Facebook when they made whatever fucking changes they made that we're unaware of.
Can I just jump in on that?
Please.
Because what really drives me nuts about all that is that people, it just seems like people, so many people will jump on that bandwagon. Like that's this big important debate about whether we should deplatform people or not. And then these fucking progressives will say, oh, look, it's already happening now. We're getting deplatformed. Like, as if freaking, you know, ultra leftists unlock this Pandora's box, and it's fucking big tech that controls the box. You know? Like, what the fuck?
And I just want to state that a lot of these fucking ultra leftists are just as quick with the block button. Okay? Just saying, yeah. Cancel culture, but I'm gonna block you if you fucking like criticize my cancel culture narrative. Not saying Ben Burgess, hilarious. Just saying Ben Burgess, not saying Aaron Matte or Ben Norton, not saying, just saying, you know. Whatever.
Yeah, and then people like cry about the cancel culture, the call out culture, because their video got demonetized. And I'm just like, your video should have never been fucking demonetized in the first place. It's corrupting your brain as we speak. You know? So the platforms themselves are a huge fucking problem. And I've seen people say it should be turned into, all of these should be turned into public utilities, the internet itself and Facebook and YouTube. And I totally agree with that. But a huge question that I don't have the answer for, but needs to be asked is, how do we do that? How do we get there? How do we just seize fucking Twitter and shit like that? You know?
Well, I mean, it's happened in our lifetime. They broke up Bell Telephone.
It's possible.
But I'm like, I have a my first word was, okay, yeah, totally post-capitalism though. I don't think social media should be viewed like our water, because it involves the expression of our ideas. So it makes me really nervous, the idea of this imperialist state turning social media into utilities. I think it's probably arguably better than where we're at right now, but we should do it very cautiously. But I also have elaborated a little bit on what Sacha Baron Cohen suggested in terms of how to properly regulate these social media platforms. He deep-throated said the ADL should be in charge of it. I think that they should be involved. Like, I feel like maybe people from ADL, people from Southern Poverty Law Center, and maybe a handful of other groups should build within their mechanisms a separate thing that can create a panel of people that are accountable to the community, that are experts. Like, I think Punks for Progress could probably put up a person that could contribute to this. And again, this is just in its genesis, but like, I just think people that are generally that spend their lives committed to recognizing hate speech and bigotry should have a much stronger say in how we regulate these platforms. That's not a deep-throated advocation for any of those groups I just listed. Please understand that. I definitely would never want the ADL to have full control over that, nor would I want the SPLC to have full control over that. But it would have to be a diverse group of voices, but people who are experts on hate speech and bigotry and shit, right?
Experts because they are discriminated against, so they can spot the narrative of that post. Because I report transphobic and homophobic posts all the fucking time, and they say I got it wrong and they got it right. Well, who the fuck is reviewing this? This is totally fucking offensive. I know it's offensive, right?
Right. And I would also say that again, it's a sort of citizens review. They're not working for Facebook or working for TikTok or whatever it is, right?
They're working to better society, really.
Yeah, I'll say that I'm in favor of having this civilian review kind of thing. If I'm on it, I'm allowed to bully the person that's from the ADL on it.
That was Milo's 2 cents. I don't understand what he said, but it was something. Maybe he wants to be on the board too.
I think there should be public ownership and control of it. And I honestly don't see how to get there without revolution. But the problem is that we need mass communication for the revolution.
You can't have community standards without the whole community at the table, right?
Totally.
You can't. So that's what every fucking social media platform needs, that input, in my opinion.
Yeah, and even,
how to get there, that's where I'm confused.
And even what I described is deeply flawed. I stand by it's better than what we're doing right now, this Citizens Review Board or whatever, but that makes me wary. That makes me wary. I don't want a group to... I'm so nervous about handing anyone the power to determine what I'm saying is acceptable or not.
But right now, it's Zuckerberg and his friends and Google and the Atlantic Council that gets to decide all that.
And whoever gives them the most money.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it is what it
People
is.
Get stalked and harassed and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, leftists should probably all just go to Discord for now, I guess.
I'm on Collectiva.
Oh, you should share that with us.
I will.
Share it in the Slack or something.
I will. Remind me, and I will. Father Fury's over there. And, as soon as you sign up, who is it? You're instantly, one of your friends is STEM. And, automatically. And, gosh, what was the other one? I think it's going down, becomes one of your first friends, just automatically. But I haven't.
What platform is that?
It's called, with a K, Collectiva.
Oh, it's theirs.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Franklin Lopez from Submedia and others had a hand in generating and creating it. Pretty sure.
I recall, I think Drew and I both shared information about it, and I think I had to get a new email, and I wasn't able to do that. It was Proton or whatever.
Yeah.
it's I think it's mainly where I'm at, even though I'm using data. It's not so much not being able to use Wi-Fi. It's I don't have strong enough signal here to do upload a lot of the time.
What just popped in my head, fam, is that like it's called struggle for a reason. And I think one of the reasons it's good for us to talk about this, even though I don't like sharing tools that can be used to censor us by our enemies. Other people are experiencing this, and you can really, really feel gaslit, especially if you're listening to the right, because the right's going to tell you that they're the ones that are under attack and being fucking censored and shit, while they're sending us death threats, literal death threats. I will kill you, you F word, but and then we report it, and they're like, yeah, we don't see how that's harassment.
Right.
So you can really feel gaslit. Like, am I really experiencing this? And you can question your own, like, is this real? It is, fam. If you're out there and you're creating leftist content, and especially if you're going out at the right, you're being targeted, probably. And you probably are being censored. And it's just like, we have to accept at the base level that is the reality and expect it. And it should motivate us to organize more to end capitalism, right?
Word.
I hope.
I hope too.
Right. And if everything is fine, probably we'll have to fight against this. Their continued repression. Yet another recruit. But just how like the pigs and the military are the world's greatest recruiters for the left wing. The blatant leadership and attempted burying it, like just another thing that anybody that like sees it like, oh, I could like make in my head, I can start connecting some dots. So there's the very strong negative, but as with all things, there's also another current.
So I just want to say, we didn't say that we were going to talk about this, but I wanted to mention that I'm really, really enjoying this new weekly show I'm doing with my cousin, the Foff, called New Leftist Questions with the Foff. Has any of you really had a chance or an opportunity to watch any of those yet?
I watched the first one.
I caught a little of it.
It's just, he's new and he's in earnest reading sort of the 101 revolutionary anarchist reading list, right? And sharing his thoughts on it openly and asking questions and stuff. And it's, he's been my family our whole lives. And he's a cool dude. And it's one of those things where it's like, I don't want to sit around and try and anticipate what a brand new leftist might be preoccupied or might be asking or curious about, right? Like, because I'd probably get it wrong if I tried to guess, and so I'm not putting any effort into thinking about how to target brand new leftists with our content. Like most of our stuff, really, I kind of take for granted they're already all in when they're watching our stuff, But so I just think it's fun. I really enjoyed it. Tackling some of these really beginning questions, right? Sounds kind of condescending to call it beginnings.
No,
but
I think it's Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just had a brain fade.
You'll catch it. What were you going to say, Bryce?
Well, are there any particular conversations on your mind with that? Any interesting questions he raised or anything?
Well, he's just kind of getting like found. I think he's had a lot of interest in things like what does post-capitalism look like, right? And he was recently a little like how to, like why aren't the people who can recognize all the corruption and all the like that capitalism is bad, why aren't they doing more? Right? No, these are questions, especially if you're organizing, that you've asked many times. You know? And I think a lot, you know, repeatedly I kind of keep coming back to is not who cares, but just keep working with other leftists. Like, you try to spend a lot of time expending a lot of energy trying to determine how are we going to recruit people. You're probably never going to recruit that many, and then you're just distracting your efforts from actually, I don't know, organizing a food drive, you know, or a coat drive, or phone zap for fucking, you know, like, right?
Yeah.
You just do it. That's what I was gonna say is, I think one of the benefits of one of these videos y'all are doing is that people get intimidated. A lot of people do. They recognize it's money. That's always my thing. I always knew I hated fucking money. I just didn't exactly know why and all the intricacies, and I mean, I still don't know a lot. But people, they hear people speaking about theory, and it can be overwhelming and intimidating, and they just don't want to ask. They don't want to, you know, they don't want someone to yell at them, because they have people sometimes on. I remember that one socialist that ripped me a new one for, instead of explaining, she just called me stupid or something. So we don't need that. And people are pretty patient on the left, I think. They have, who I've come across with, have been patient with me. But that's not going to be 100% of the time. It's probably not even 60% of the time, because people are at different levels in their learning. So someone can click on this video and, oh my gosh, this guy's asking what I wanted to ask, right?
Right. And I'll say, you know, and
then
especially
they get encouraged to have the discussions. Sorry.
like no. Thank you. Like maybe more so on just on more so just online, but there's like this sort of inclination, especially with newer leftists, they don't want to be seen as not knowing what the fuck they're talking about. And I think most people who embrace leftism tend to be pretty intelligent people. Like there's a base level of intellect there that, not always, okay, but some of these concepts can be pretty complex. And so I think there's a lot of posturing, and there's a lot of people who acting like they know more than they do. And what comes with that is a lot of like defensiveness. Like, whoa, don't you disagree with me? Like, people get really, like, I generally see that as someone who really probably doesn't have a very strong grasp on the theory and the history if they're getting really, really upset when they're challenged. And I think doing this with Foff, we're telling people, hey, it's okay to just be like, because it is okay to just be like, I don't know that much. I've read this, and I've read this, and that's it. That's what I know. And because nobody ever comes or ever becomes fully formed as a leftist. And you have to start somewhere. And if you're not honest about what you know and what you don't know, you're not setting yourself up to learn. Instead, you're just trying to defend whatever bullshit take you had in the moment, and you know, and the best way to grow as a leftist is to be real honest with yourself and with others about what you know and what you don't know. Nobody owns this information, and none of us created it. It's just, when have we had, I will say, a lot of us have had the privilege of being able to study a lot of this shit. Most people ain't coming up on all these kind of books. You only see a fraction of my bookshelf. I have a lot of fucking books, and I've read most of them. And most people just, that's one of the things that's my white privilege. That's a definite manifestation of my white privilege right there. That I've been able to come up on a collection like that and be able to have the time to study it. So
Right.
no one should feel bad for not having knowledge. And sorry, I keep rambling, and I know you want to get in, Kate.
Yeah, I think that that's something I wanted to say about like a lot of like education programs is like a lot of people when they try to design them are like, well, what are the questions I expect somebody is going to have getting started? And it's like, don't do that. You're wasting your time because like everybody is coming from like a very different perspective and might be coming in for different reasons. You're not going to be able to cover everything like in like one reading in one specific order or anything like that. Like, like don't bother. Like answer questions as they come up. But the most important thing, number one, as an educator, um, is like if somebody asks a question and you don't know the answer, the greatest answer that you give is, I don't know, let's find out.
Right.
Like, and like do the investigation and like work on like finding out what the answer is. Like social investigation and like, building knowledge collectively is just like so much better and more impactful than just like, well, I read six of these books. Have you read them? It's not as helpful to just like quote at people as it is to like try and generate knowledge on terms that like you create, right? It's just yeah.
And there's
Those were
always,
like my 2 cents on all of it.
there's always someone that if you're going to act like you know some shit on some shit, that can spot that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about because they actually do know some shit on that shit. And they're just
And you'll
looking
get
at you
called
like
out.
going, dude, shut
Right.
up. Oh my
Those
God, how
people should always
cringe.
be clowned on and like cyberbullied and not taken seriously.
Price. What that video? Oh no, you didn't share it. I'm sorry. Black Flag shared it. It was Cypress. Call it? No, not Cypress. That's here. Shoot. It was university. I cannot remember. Anyway, it was a discussion on. I can't remember the exact title. I think it was culture.
I'm trying to find
Anyway,
They dropped a couple links in our work group this morning.
there was a panel and they were having it, and it's awesome. I mean, it's almost 3 hours long, but I would tell everyone to watch it. Is it Cypress University? I swear it was Cypress, but
Let's
maybe
see.
it's just that troll. I got her name stuck in my head.
Was it the white trash 400-year untold history of class in America? That was one of the links that Black Flag dropped.
Trash? No.
Nancy
It was
Eisenberg.
yesterday. It was yesterday they shared it.
Oh, okay. I'm not going to go back that far.
I'll find it eventually and reshare it in there. But the panel was there, and there were professors from different areas. And the one professor, I don't remember her exact credentials, but she was a feminist. And there was a black male professor, and she kept chiming in and relating basically women's oppression to like fucking everything, and then the white woman and the black woman. And I understood the point she was making, but she got called out twice at the end by two of her peers. And that should happen.
Is
it
it
shouldn't be all nice.
from Emory University,
It's-
Shan?
Pardon?
Emory University.
Emory. So at least it started with an EM.
Yeah, so
right?
the video is called Whiteness, the meaning
Not a
of a
CY.
racial, it's called Whiteness, the meaning of a racial, social, and legal construct. It's on
Yeah.
the YouTube channel,
It's
Emory University.
awesome. It's awesome. I would rewatch it because I know
Thank you,
I
Black
couldn't
Flag, for
absorb
dropping
all
that
of
in the
the
Slack.
full conversations. But yeah, so she got called out and she would interject more. It wasn't like the question was to her or she took the question, where the rest of the panel would take a question and then that was it, right? And she would just keep interjecting this, that the white culture is just as bad for the white female. And it just really diluted other issues that were being brought up. And so she got called out at the end. But the one professor, I could see his foot going when she was talking one. He was just like rocking back. And I could tell he just wanted to go on and rip her
Well,
a new
and
one,
it's
but he
because,
did
look,
not.
it gets to, what Martin Luther King said, and I will not even come close to getting it right, but he talked about how he came to free the white oppressor as well. But he didn't come out and say that means that they're just as oppressed as us because they're adversely affected by their gross behaviors. Of course, it's look, man, I would venture to say that none of the fucking toxic scumbag terrorists of the Klan and all these people and neo-Nazi boneheads and shit, I don't think these people live pleasurable existences. I think they're fucking miserable.
Yeah.
Okay? But what they're not is lynched or violently and brutally oppressed by the fucking most powerful mechanisms on the planet. And never have been or never will be.
It's not to say that white women aren't abused, and that was the point she was trying to make. And they are a product of the white male patriarchy. But that's what it was. It was why so many white women voted for Trump when they're oppressed by the same white male patriarchy. So that was the correlation. But the thing is she kept bringing that, like that was the issue for different scenarios and situations of
It's like
the white imperial,
sort of the equivalent of a
patriarchy.
one issue voter or a single issue voter, kinda.
Yeah, and it was like, I think she's a historian, so it was just like, why? You're not like female studies, and all females aren't white. Like, that's what I was thinking. Why do you keep doing this shit? Anyway,
Right.
so
Like somebody really corny, like constantly bringing up that misogyny is like not ideal for men either. Though I'll tell you who it's a lot worse for.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Like yeah, that's a type of argument that if you bring it up once, I'll be like, yeah, that's true. But if you bring it up twice, I'm like, shut up. Like what? Like is this really the crux? Is this the important rhetorical point? We have to just be like, we have to hashtag not all men misogyny, right? Like, is that the only?
Well, and it's akin to class reductionism, right? It's sort of, maybe it's gender reductionism. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but it's reducing everything to one issue essentially, right? When it's broad and it's diverse, and we can very clearly point to one of the worst mechanisms of oppression on the planet, but we can't write off everybody's individual dispositions as being reflective of what that state does, right? That actually resigns us to being just reactions to the state, and that's all we are. We're all directly affected by that state, and to varying degrees. But there's other components of our lives that comprise who we are, all of us as individuals, right? And it's like getting stuck on one hot take and just, beating it into the ground,
Yeah,
Nothing in life is that
when they
cut and
were
dry.
describing the complexity of, this what the heck is the name of it again? The social construct. Sorry.
Whiteness.
The whiteness, yeah. The different tiers, right? No, I mean white women do it because even though they'll get beat or raped or whatever by the same white male, that white male will also protect them and give them status, right? It's like she made a good analogy at one point about how slaves would go in and the slave master would go in and have sex with his property, and then the female slave owner would come out and beat the slave all over again because she had sex because she doesn't control her body. She's owned. So it was like,
Yeah, she can't go beat her
instead of
husband.
standing up for the woman, it's the hierarchy. She has status and privilege.
Grossness.
Gross. Really gross.
So what I'm saying is stop being white. Like, just stop it. Okay? Actually, there is no such thing as white. I celebrate my Scottish heritage, even though I'm also Mexican. But I go to Robert Burns dinners, and I got kilts, and I have a genuine love and appreciation for my Scottish heritage. I don't know what white means, though. I don't know what that is. Still, I think that just means I want to be a bigot and hate things I'm afraid of and don't understand. I think that's what that is.
My grandpa celebrated Highland Games and wore a kilt and did all that, marched and that kind of stuff, but
and I'll tell you what, no Black Lives Matter activist has ever given me shit for celebrating my Scottish heritage. Ever.
But then my grandma celebrated her native heritage. I mean, not like my grandpa did at all, because she was extremely modest, but
I'll tell you what, my Scottish heritage is not better than your heritage. It's not. It's not better. It's just what my family was. And it's no better than my Mexican heritage, and my Mexican heritage is no better than it. They're both awesome. There's deep things in my past, like my ancestors said, dude, we haven't had documented verifiable facts, and so many Latinx people say this. But listen, the story in my family has always been that the way my family came to the States was my great-great-grandfather and his brothers. Actually, his brothers owned a brothel in Mexico. And apparently they provided women to Pancho Villa and his soldiers and rode with him. So my family's story is that once Pancho Villa started forcing women, like children and stuff, they turned state's evidence and came to the United States with political asylum. Now, that could all be absolute nonsense. But what I do know is that I found out much later that there were two brothers that owned a brothel that rode with Pancho Villa and brought their harem with them. I've seen, now, that doesn't mean that someone in my family didn't catch wind of that and heard about that and tried to act like that was our story, right? But, like, I'd like to think it's true, not because they were brothel owners, because that's fucking gross, but that they were involved in a revolution. And that when children were employed, they bailed on it. Mixed bag, fam, right?
My grandma told me, well, my dad first, but about when she was real little, She was born in Deming, New Mexico, which is real close to the border. But back then, I don't think it was like border. There were no walls. And she can remember being real little and her mom saying, "You stay in the house and do not come out." And she would go out. What did they call the resistance? The individual like bandits.
Banditos?
Did they call them banditos?
I don't know.
Anyway, with the war, it was the end of the war. They were the fighters. They were on their horses and they would come there, and my grandma would give them food and water, and they would give her gold, or not gold pieces. They would give her money, coins.
I know what you're talking about. The word is on the tip of my tongue too. It's not banditos, but damn it.
Fuck is their name? And it's not cowboys, which is I can't pronounce
no.
it.
But it's like that. It's fuck anyway.
So yeah, my great grandma gave the horses water and fed the fighters. It was because she had to. She was afraid. That's why, but she did it. I don't know. That's my indigenous side. Maybe in her heart she was like, fuck these fucking people.
But in the end, it's just, this is inconsequential ultimately to who we are as individuals today, right? It contributes to who we are, and we should acknowledge it, right? Like, but I feel like I'm the only one of me. I'm not my great grandpa. I'm not my great grandchildren. Should there be any? I hope. But so yeah, I just don't get this. Well, I get it. I understand where it comes from. I wonder. I mean, is race truly an invention of capitalism? I don't know that there was a lot of talk of race prior to the solidification of capitalism. I mean, there was xenophobia, right? There's always been xenophobia.
It's definitely
it's a product
to pit people against each other.
It's a product. I'm sorry. It's a product of colonialism, and it started with Bacon's Rebellion and other uprisings. But I always, I've begun to think of that, like, Lenin had it backwards, that, like, capitalism is actually an extension of imperialism and not the other way around. Colonialism was just a stage in that development. That's just my take.
I don't know if I understand it.
But that's where racism comes from. That's where whiteness comes from, is the Bacon's Rebellion, and it was, invented whole cloth.
Like, did people say, they didn't say white people before that, right? That wasn't a thing people said, was it? And wouldn't that xenophobic been like, it would have been based on cultural differences. They're from this other area and they do things differently there, and we're afraid of that. But not, look at the color of your skin, I hate you.
Until 1967, was it 1967? That's when it changed. There were only certain parts of Europe that could come here, and then they started opening it up to other, and I learned this from that doc, but I knew about it. Then they opened it up to different parts of Europe. But when they came, they were oppressed, the Italians, right? So it was like, a trickling in of but there's always been the others, the white and the others.
Right.
But different people have come into the white.
Yeah, and the reason for that is just because. Sorry, Drew, were you just saying something?
No, I'll mute. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. But yeah, like, the big reason behind that is because just fundamentally, like, what whiteness is, how it's defined and how it was systematized, right? And that whiteness has always been based on like purity, right? A very like Protestant notion of like purity being like you are either all white or you are other. You know, Barack Obama has like a white mom, but he's not white, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so like on some level, I think the while I like identify like white, I'm certainly not like proud of being white. Jesus, you know, it like there's a lot of historic and cultural factors that like uh, necessitate my recognition of myself as white. That makes sense. Um, but to speak about the Italian Irish, because like this definition is so constrictive and so based in like purity brought about from like Christian missionaries and colonialism, like white people are would eventually like go away if you weren't going to like eventually bring in Italians and Irish people and the Jews, etc. Um, and you'll find a lot in when like white supremacists start to like build up power, the definition kind of like starts to move in reverse. The
Mm-hmm.
Jews become not white, then like are Italians white, are Irish people white? um it's always about like uh
And it's usually about class, really.
yeah.
That group already that had immigrated prior, that was other, eventually moved up in class, and then and it keeps going and going. So, and then others get absorbed into the white group.
Are the reptilian shapeshifters that live in the center of the moon, are they white?
I don't know.
I'm sure of it.
I don't know. Q hasn't posted about them in a long time, so I don't know what to think at this point.
Well, see, the one thing I was gonna, the distinction I was gonna make, and I'm not sure that that is true with Asians, but there is an other group that is never gonna be white, and that's Africans. They'll never be white, but indigenous will eventually, when the blood quantum goes away, they're white. Like, I have to say I'm white, right? Ridiculous.
I'm going to venture to say that the reptilian shapeshifters that live in the center of the moon are white. There. What now, Q?
Wear
What now?
tinfoil hats.
That's right.
White people are all reptilian shapeshifters.
That's probably true too. So that would make me part reptilian.
Yeah.
I'm kind of down with that because I would love to see the center of the moon.
I'm expecting her to wake up and run in here and go, I was dragon in my past life. She's still zoned.
And they're interdimensional shape-shifting reptilians too. You know what I mean? Like, I'm down to get some interdimension on. Right? Warp factor 10 and see what happens. Right?
I'd vomit. I'd get motion sickness.
You get warp, like, past warp 6, you're just like, yo, this interdimension shit's a little tough on my belly.
Yep.
Yeah. Important issues, fam.
Well, the original like Men in Black theory, well, they were supposed to live in the center of the earth, right? Have you heard about this?
I did not know that.
Apparently that was all like anti Asian. A whole conspiracy theory. Like Men in Black were originally supposed to be Asians, most likely Chinese. I can't remember if this is. Yeah, it's probably Cold War.
Sure.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's a little fun fact there.
I like Vincent D'Onofrio. And
Which is disgusting on its face. This notion that Asians, yeah, they're actually it's a way to dehumanize people, clearly, right? To say, and it wouldn't surprise me that it would be part of the it's not yellow fear. What did they call it?
Yellow peril.
Yeah, part of all that propaganda, right? That would probably be one of the deepest levels. They're literally not human and not even from the planet. Be terrified. Gross.
I stumbled across a random post on some UFO site. Had nothing to do with the page it was commented on, but it was this long screed about how all Asians can read minds. And I know it's like it's disgusting, but almost comically so.
Trotsky was also well known anti-Asian racist. He like wrote, I think it was an unpublished biography of Stalin, in which he said that, like, you know, Stalin's Asiatic upbringing brought out his inner brutality as a dictator and shit. Like, just
Wow.
super like transparently racist. Awful.
And do you think he believed that? I mean, if he believed it, that's gross and he's a racist. And if he didn't believe that and said it, then he was okay with employing racism to make a point. Either way. Like...
Right. It's kind of my same criticism with, say, Marx's on the Jewish question, in that, like, you know, while Marx might not have explicitly been an anti-Semite, he was certainly willing to, like, utilize anti-Semitic, like, tropes and, like, stereotypes to, like, make his own particular point, right? Though I would say Trotsky's was a lot worse.
Oh,
It was just like active character defamation.
Yeah, and then that's
like,
overt, right?
Yeah,
it's not problematic.
Right.
It's not just problematic and wrong. It's like purposeful, you know, and
Right.
and callous, and even and malicious, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I'm just gonna have to fucking turn in my Trotskyist card. You know, I, in all honesty, I've just never read Trotsky. It hasn't, like, I'm sure at some point I'm gonna want to, because I just want to have the context of what he wrote, right? But, like,
Right.
I've never felt any need or desire to be informed by Trotsky's philosophy at all. Like, and I read Lenin and Mao. I'm an anarchist that has no problem reading fucking red literature and theory at all. And I enjoy a lot of it and feel enriched by a lot of it. But I just haven't. I would probably, honestly, read Stalin before I'll get around to Trotsky.
Isn't Trotsky who had the affair with Frida? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she eventually, like, dumped him and became a Stalinist, which is incredibly funny. But in terms of, like, reading Stalin, I actually, like, highly recommend it. Like, particularly his work, Dialectical and Historical Materialism. Like, it's just, like, really, like, straightforward and not too, like, complicated read, and it's just like, okay, some people don't know what this is, and I'm just going to, like, formulate a list of, like, here are the features of dialectics, here's materialism, here's how they merge. It's really good. Great teaching tool as well. Though I will say you'll probably have less enjoyment reading. I think it was called On Anarchism. He doesn't, not big on anarchism as you could imagine.
Well, see, and actually, I probably would enjoy reading that because I'm not intimidated by critiques of anarchism at all. In fact, let me hear them. As long as you're actually
Right.
critiquing anarchism and not throwing out straw man bullshit, and then if that's what he's doing in that work, I would be like, this is a straw man, this is bullshit, and here's why, right? So in a
Right.
lot of ways, my ongoing mission of wanting to combat sectarianism, like, I think that's one of the best ways to do it. Is let's look at what the early Marxist-Leninists said about anarchism. Let's listen to what Bakunin actually said about Marx. Let's read what Marx said in response, and let's find the faults and find where they're right. I think early on, a lot of the divisions that grew out of between anarchists and communists were because people picked sides in some of these debates when maybe the people having them saw themselves still on the same team. You know, maybe those divisions weren't as entrenched as we may think now. You know, 125. They had critiques of each other. You know, but like, shouldn't we be doing that today? Shouldn't we be critiquing each other's theory? And like, if you're getting shitty about it, then fuck you. Be comradely, but like, we have to critique each other, or otherwise we're not going to grow. But
Definitely. And like, even just like looking into the history of like, say, someone like Mao Zedong shows that, like, you know, the distance between the beliefs of, say, like, anarchists, especially Maoists, is like not a massive gulf, right?
there really isn't. I mean, I would argue that Mao arrived at things that some early anarchists espoused and were criticized by Marxists for.
Yeah, Mao was an anarchist.
Yeah.
Before he helped found the Communist Party of China. Like he was an anarchist for years.
And it was not Bookchin, but who was it that he was the well-known anarchist that he was reading? And God damn it,
Wasn't it Kropotkin?
or Godwin? No, maybe Kropotkin. He definitely knew of Kropotkin, and I can't think of who I'm thinking of. Damn it, but he was definitely openly like informed by this one specific anarchist whose name is slipping my mind right now. I don't know, man. It's just like, what are we gonna do, anarchists? If we really want to end capitalism, how are we gonna get there? And we're gonna have to have some type of organizational principle. And I do believe that the earliest anarchists knew this. Bakunin knew this and had no problem with it. Emma Goldman, who wrote one of the most well-known scathing criticisms of the Bolsheviks, was totally supportive of them in the beginning. And the vast majority of her criticism of it, basically her thesis of it was, whether she was right or not, is here's where you departed from socialism, here's where you didn't stay true to what you said you were going to do, here's where you left your own theory. Now, whether she's right or not, I didn't hear a whole lot about, hey man, a vanguard is wrong and evil, and she was all for it. Bakunin had the International Brotherhood. It was actually a secret vanguard, fam. It's Bakunin. I like, and you know, one of the major things that one of the major things that was at the core of what happened in the disagreements between Bakunin and Marx during the First International was Bakunin and the alienistas were arguing that Marx was wrong to suggest we should use parliamentary processes as praxis towards the revolution. Okay? Marx wasn't saying, and then actually, the alienistas and the people, the Bakunin anarchists essentially were saying there should be no participation whatsoever in any type of bourgeois parliamentary processes. Marx argued that it can be useful, like an inside-out kind of thing, which I don't think was, but followers of Bakunin then labeled that as authoritarian. And I don't see that as being an authoritarian assertion by Marx at all. I think the anarchists were wrong in that assessment. But I think Leninists and Maoists arrived at that and said, no, you can't win by voting. You can't vote away capitalism, right? You can't elect away capitalism. So they ultimately did arrive at what the Bakuninists were asserting. And that, I'm open to hearing your criticism of that, but they were asserting early on that, well, actually what I would say was, that's where I see the genesis of the do-nothing anarchist comes from, which I don't think is a fair assessment of the position of the anarchists at the time, because they weren't saying don't do anything. They were just saying, we think that if you get involved in these parliamentary processes, you'll end up getting lost in that process and lose sight of the revolution. And from my understanding, I think Lenin and Mao arrived at that same position, but I'm open to hearing how wrong I may be.
I'll say in terms of Mao, like, you're essentially right, but like China didn't really have like any kind of like democratic representative system.
Oh, right.
Like in the 1930s. So like there wasn't really like any way for him to participate in that
It wasn't
way.
even an option, right?
Right.
Right.
And the Bolsheviks in 1905 through 1917 kind of alternated depending on like particular conditions and how engaged people were with bourgeois politics as to whether or not they like run people in Duma or not. Which the Duma wasn't established until 1905 in the February Revolution, in which the Tsar Nicholas basically had to cave and set up some like bullshit, like doesn't really do anything, like parliamentary process. So I would say like kind of they came to the conclusion that like participation in bourgeois politics wasn't useful, but like I would say that Lenin wasn't like strictly for or against.
Well,
like,
and in the international,
use a tool when it works, right? Use
Sure.
a hammer when you see a nail. Not everything's a nail.
and the international ultimately adopted a compromise that they wouldn't come out and outright ban participation. They saw room, and I still think there's some truth to that, where it can be useful on some level. I think we have to be very, very careful how much emphasis we put on, because I think there's truth to that. Like, if you're going to go be a senator, like, there's so much you're going to have to do that's going to be a total distraction from any type of anti-capitalist stuff. You're going to have to be really, really strong in your convictions, I think, to really endure that. But, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Kate, but my understanding is one of the major distinctions between the Mensheviks and the Bolsheviks was sort of this right here, right? That like, and that even Trotsky, my understanding, is advocated early on sort of, let's elect socialists and revolutionaries, right? And that was a big part of what the Mensheviks' organizing principle was, and Bolsheviks were more opposed to that. Is there truth to that? Am I remembering this correctly?
There is truth to that. The Mensheviks very much like saw it as like a road in and of itself that could like bring about socialism, whereas like the Bolsheviks were like, no, we have to like combine like above ground legal obvious work that like we mobilize people around with like clandestine illegal shit. Organizing strikes and labor unions and things of that nature, which is why Bolsheviks were called majority. What Bolshevik means,
Minority, and right.
Or minority.
Yeah. So pretty much Bakunin was a Bolshevik, is what I'm saying. No, he wasn't.
Well, I was going to say, and maybe Aaron can correct me if I'm wrong, but on the other side of your point, isn't it true that the anarcho-syndicalists ultimately developed a more nuanced view of that under the rubric of, say, diversity of tactics,
Right.
and that every inch gained is an inch needed, be it through reform or not. I mean, isn't that correct?
No, well, yeah. I mean, clearly, because that's a term that's deeply and closely associated with anarchism, right? Diversity of tactics, right? Like, you learn that one the first day you become an anarchist, I think. And I don't see, like in later years, I don't see Malatesta deep-throated advocating against any form of parliamentary process. His Vote What For pamphlet gives you a lot of reasons for why it could turn, backfire on you and could ultimately hinder you in the long run. But he wasn't out like calling people counter-revolutionaries for trying it, right? So I think there's truth to that. And I embrace that. Like, here, look, I'm not out here thinking that AOC and the squad is... I don't waste any time thinking that they're going to get anything done for me, but there's a chance they might. So I'm not trying to get in their way. I'm not trying to call them sellouts or counter-revolutionaries until I see evidence of them being, like, literally counter-revolutionary, like Nancy Pelosi or Biden, right? Like, but it won't surprise me if that comes up either. And if they start doing this deep-throated shit, it wouldn't surprise me at all. But if they're going to fight, like, I don't think we should be, as anarchists or socialists or communists, out here putting all our efforts into trying to get Medicare for all. But I'm not going to try and stop them from trying. But I would probably caution against one of my comrades. Look, to answer your question on this, we totally got behind Comrade Carrico's run for Senate. And I still feel like we were right to do so. He was running a propaganda campaign.
There you go.
And I don't think Carrico would have got, if they had won, would have got lost in it and sold out the revolution. I think that they genuinely would have used it as a platform to sell anti-capitalism and to push anti-capitalism. So I think there's potential for it being useful. I'm not going to go find out myself, though. I'm not planning on running for any office anytime soon. God, what a nightmare that would be.
Yeah. I will say that, like, running for office in the United States is, like, a very different beast from, like, running for office in, say, the Russian Empire circa 1910, right? Because, like, that was a parliamentary system, whereas, like, this is, like, bicameral legislature, in which, like, there's nothing as, like, coalition, right? So fundamentally, like, you have to, like, support somebody that's in a party that's fundamentally compromised, and won't hold them to any sort of principle, right? And won't be, and even if, like, say somebody from CPUSA or PSL or MCPOC, who knows, like, were elected into a place in American Parliament, like, the Democrats aren't uniting with them. Like, that, you just, I don't really see much of a route in America, like, pursuing.
Absolutely. And for people who may not be as aware of parliamentary structures, now, not all parliaments are structured this way, but if you get a majority of your party elected to parliament, they get to put up the prime minister by default.
Yeah. The government.
So it is, right. There is a fair argument to be made that if you can get enough anti-capitalist revolutionaries in parliament, you could literally conceivably take over the government. Or at least I think there's a better argument to be made there than definitely here. I think you're totally dead on in like, just, I don't ever see the squad growing to any numbers that's gonna, like, they're never gonna take over the majority in Congress. the squad. It's just, and if they did, we're talking 15 years after the planet melted and we're all dead.
Right. Yeah, the squad also like has also done some stuff that's put me very off recently. Like saw some pictures of AOC meeting with like far right leaders, like people that like, tried to back up the Wong Guaido coup.
I hadn't heard that. That's a serious fucking problem, comrade. She's meeting with fucking backers of Guaido. I mean, like, if she's meeting with them and then making a public statement about how disgusting they are, then okay. Did she make that statement?
She had to be like kind of pressured to put abolish ICE back into her website or demands. It was quietly removed a couple of months ago. Somebody like on her Twitter noticed it, like called her out on it. Like like her team or whatever, quick like added it back on the website.
What was it? You kind of cut out a little bit. What was it that they retracted? Explain that again, if you could.
ICE.
A what? I'm sorry.
Abolish.
Oh, she's backtracking on abolish ICE.
She did like quietly for a moment until somebody saw that wasn't on her website anymore and like called her out on it. So personally, I don't see myself like holding out any amount of hope for that these like the squad really going to like deliver or even like meaningfully push on any of like their campaign shit.
And we don't live in the Bronx. Like, the vast majority of what she can actually accomplish isn't going to affect us. She's not... Bobby O talks about this a lot, that he's continuously baffled that people outside of his district care about her so much. He's like, I have my opinions because I live in her district. She's my rep. So he's in the game, as it were, right? Like, and she does not have... You know, it's funny. The Turks constantly talk about, like, look at everything that she's been able to accomplish. I'm like, what? A fucking Twitter following? I haven't seen one law passed that has made any of our lives better. She hasn't achieved any of that stuff. And why should we think she can? She's one person amid 10 people in a squad. Like, and what? Because people are fucking saying Medicare for All and Green New Deal on Twitter more? Who cares? Like, that doesn't affect real-time change. And it's weird to me that people see that as some type of real-time change.
Yeah, if anything, I see it much more cynically, and I see it very much as a facet of counterinsurgency rather than as, like, you know, a growth in the socialist movement. Because it's really just, like, a movement toward, like, bringing more people into, like, voting for
it's sheepdogging to the DNC, man.
Yeah. It's DSA.
Like, it's hey, don't worry, AOC will handle it. Go on home. She's got it from here. Well, fuck that, man.
I was gonna add that the difference is that, and I don't know if she was a Democratic Socialist.
She was DSA. Yeah, she was DSA.
So she's not a proper leftist. So if a proper leftist went in there, they know it's a game. They know the only way they can get any legislation passed is if they bend over and take it up the ass from the corporations. That's it. Period. End of story. That's how it works now. That's how it's always worked, but not necessarily corporation. But if a proper leftist went in there, they know that. They know they're not going to be able to get anything done, but maybe they can awaken people.
But then again, it's awaken them to what?
For more people
a false hope for Medicare for all? You know, a false hope for a Green New Deal? We're not going to get a fucking Green New Deal, man. It's not.
No, but that's my point, is someone coming from a democratic socialist, a progressive, a liberal stance once they get there, they find out they can actually make change.
Right.
They're hopeful. They're on a high. They just won. They just gathered all these people to campaign for them. And then they get there and they realize how shit where it really works and how bad it is. And then you can't fucking do anything about it. And so they're going to give, is my point. Where a proper leftist, they already know this. And that's not what they're going there to do. They're going there to disrupt.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I was gonna say it seems like the only principled way to be like elected to the House of Representatives would be go in there, make a bunch of noise, and basically like do a Fiona Apple at the Grammys every day. This is bullshit. Like, like turn off C-SPAN. Nothing. Anything. Don't believe shit that comes out of any of these fuckers.
That dude is a liar that just spoke before me, and they're disgusting, and they're paid by this person, and this person. Okay, and now the next person that's going to talk, they're scum because they're going to do this, and this is what they're doing. Don't believe them. It's bullshit. Nancy Pelosi ain't ever going to get you this Green New Deal. She's a fucking liar. Here's where her money comes from. That's what, if you're going to get anything done there, that's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, maybe
like,
get the filibuster ended because you'll never shut up.
And like the Marxist in, I think it was Oregon, Marx motherfuckers at the end of his speech, right?
Right.
Just like, power to the people.
Marx.
It's a higher platform, right? I don't know. That's the only thing I could see doing, because no one from the far left is gonna go there thinking anything's gonna happen other than them getting pushed out and not reelected. But they can, make a disturbance while they're there.
And the squad sort of gives the illusion of making a disturbance. A lot of right-wingers are really freaked out.
And aren't they all women? Or there's one?
No, they got Jamal Bowman now. I think that they kind of see Jamal Bowman as squad, maybe. I don't know. I'm not even paying attention.
That's a lot of why the right-wingers hate him, too.
Like, I wasn't even paying that close attention to the Trump administration either, man. Like, right, the very beginning, I was paying close attention because it was like, holy shit, these guys are hardcore racists. Wow, okay. And they're facilitating the street violence and shit. So I cared, but like, kind of more concerned with what you guys think and are doing than any of those people. Like, it has more relevance, and I think directly, clearly has more relevance to my life, but like, whatever small, seemingly inconsequential work that we may be doing, I think it's far more important than anything that AOC may or may not accomplish. Even if you want to give her all the benefit of the doubt in the world. I still don't think that she's going to get any of this. I'll be massively surprised if I ever see universal health care come out of Congress. Pre-fucking revolution. Like, I think that it's going to get more dystopian, man. This fucking climate change shit is going to get gnarly worse. And the more it goes on, it's not on a steady pattern. It gets exponentially more fucking terrible every goddamn day. And we're doing nothing. And I don't care that some fucking Democrat talked shit to an oil exec the other day and said, oh, please. Because they didn't end that fucking oil exec's power. At all. At all. That was making the rounds the other day. Some liberal was fire as fuck and took down some oil exec. And I'm going, no, they didn't. They said some shit on TV, and then that oil exec went back doing exactly what they've always done.
We're still fracking in liberal California. So
I mean, the final collapse of this country, Drew, I think, hinted at this earlier, but like, this is all going to fucking collapse. And I think that's incumbent on us to have some sort of mechanisms in place to do something about that when it does, to have some foundation in place so that we can be in solidarity and come together as a community, right? To survive it.
it's like a whole new definition to revolution pending survival.
Where?
Revolution for survival, whichever.
But
But
yeah,
we're trapped under patriarchal daddy, right? Not we. I'm saying the globe of human beings. They want daddy to fix it. And so daddy's not fixing it.
yeah. If anybody's watching
But
this and
I
you
don't
made it 2.5 hours into this, I would suggest that if you haven't already, start looking into joining some type of anti-capitalist group, party, or collective or effort. Um, I don't see any other thing that's going to make any difference in this stuff or make any change other than people who are focused on anti-capitalist efforts, right? Not everyone has access to that in their communities. Maybe that means you're the one to start it.
But you have access to the internet to educate and learn and, have people to lean on, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
That's important because it gets hard, dealing with or not knowing and knowing actually what's going on.
Any
But
other?
people,
Go ahead.
sorry, I just really think that people, I don't understand is what I'm gonna say. Why people aren't paying attention? They know the climate's changing. They understand it. They believe in science. But it's like it's not going to affect me, I guess. But it is going to affect your kid or grandkid or great grandkid and all the species on the planet.
I don't think it's a case of like they're not paying attention or don't want to do anything, but rather that most people are just like in a position where like they functionally like can't do anything or feel like legitimately that they can do, right? But if you're stuck in like a dead end 40-hour a week job and or like two, then and you're barely making ends and like your like daily needs are barely being fulfilled, um, it's going to be pretty difficult for even if I can explain all of the facets of climate change and they agree, they're like, okay, that's bad, but if I don't make it till next Tuesday, then me knowing this isn't like that helps.
Gonna make
Yeah, and if you're working 2 full-time jobs and you're exhausted, like I ain't gonna shame someone who doesn't get involved
and
because
that's
I don't know.
not
What I
what I
do
mean
is
at
try to
all.
honor those who do. That's what I try
I'm
to do.
talking more about people who actually could free up some time, to do something other than vote and buy into that system. I just wanted to make that distinction because I was that person working 3 jobs and getting recyclables out of trash cans to try and have enough food on the table because we had to have somewhere to live and that's all I could afford. So yeah, I 100% get that because that's why I wasn't paying attention, you know?
It can be a privilege to pay attention, no doubt.
Correct. But I have to admit, I just got to the point where I can't keep fooling myself that I can't get involved some way because I would cry myself to sleep other night. Fantasizing about robbing a bank or an armored car isn't like realistic, right? But that's what I would do instead of if I just took that little bit of time to do something or something better, like educating myself. So that's the way I like to look at it with people because it is overwhelming. You come home and you just want to turn on the TV and tune the fuck out of everything, right? Don't want to pay attention to anything.
Well, that's why, like, look, one of the things I appreciate so much about this little fam we have here at P4P is, look, we've done some organizing as a group, not much. Most of us have done organizing as individuals in other ways, right? Like in other things, and have worked, and we come here together. But first and foremost, I think what we are is a support network for each other. We're a place where, hey, fam, fuck it, just I couldn't take it anymore today. Well, you can come to us, and we'll hear you out and relate to your issues, you know? And that is so crucial, especially to have other people in your life that understand capitalism's role, not just people who love you and care about you, because there's plenty of people that may love you and care about you but don't get it, that don't understand the role capitalism is playing, and so you can't conceivably actually tell them what you're enduring. You know, like for, Pico the Bear talks about he has his therapist is a Marxist. Like, how fucking lucky is that? To find a therapist that can because listen, man, most people, if they don't understand capitalism, they're not going to understand why we give a shit so much about this stuff. To them, it's like, why are you obsessed with all this history and theory and shit? I don't get it. Like, it's so much more than that. It literally is directly affecting my life every day. And to be able to have you, fam, to come with that stuff and say, fuck, this is just, Shan, when, you know, to be able to hear, I can't stop crying over this fucking gnarly shit they're doing. I think that's why we're here for each other. Right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you said early on about having a support network in your community, however that consists. But you have to have a support network, and not just, you know, and I don't mean just food or, you know, like mutual aid type, but mental health. And no, I'm not a therapist, but I've been in therapy a lot. You know, but right now I don't have a therapist. I have an old therapist that she's my only therapist. I can call her when I need to, but that's about all I have. First of all, you need money. But yeah, it's critical because you're gonna get alienated from people, and what I want people to know, and this will make me cry, is it's not you. You're not choosing to be alienated. You're choosing to be true to you and who you are and your core beliefs that you've always had as a little kid, but you just didn't understand all this shit, right? And so I truly believe that's what draws us together, is those core beliefs. And then eventually we realize that we need changes within ourselves and to educate ourselves in different areas. And then once we get through that kind of stuff, we can take on stuff like theory and, you know, choose what is the best for us. And like me, I just say I'm a nonconformist. I don't know how to pick an organization because I don't believe everything from every specific theorist. And you know what I'm saying? It's like I like this and I like that. I'm like the Dorothy Parker. I just wasn't a famous writer that was at the Spanish Revolution, you know. But she never called herself anything but a writer. I don't even call myself that. Y'all do. But yeah, I showed up because I couldn't fucking take it anymore. And I knew I had to do something. And in my family, there is organizing background with my mom. She was a community organizer. And then my dad is union. And I've always been in a union when I can be. So I did have that. You know, my dad went on strike a few times. So there was that exposure. So I knew I had somewhere to turn. Like I take Nick when they were little and go to the march in Santa Ana. And I can remember this one woman going, "Why are you here?" Because it was for immigrants' rights. And I just started crying. And I'm like, great, I got fucking white lady tears going on, right? But I didn't answer her. And then she patted me on the shoulder and she said, "I just wanted to thank you." But it may have been a translation thing, but it was like, why is this white girl here? Like, I grew up in Santa Ana. What are you talking about? But no, I'm here for you, not me. You know, that's why I'm here. But ultimately, I'm here for all of us workers.
Right.
But yeah, Nick liked that. That was Nick's first exposure to activism, was a May Day march in downtown Santa Ana.
That's a great first experience, May Day. Fuck yeah. Raising her right, Shan.
Trying. I don't even get me wrong. There is no perfect parent. We all know.
Is Aaron gonna get his vaccine on May 1st?
She just asked if you're gonna get your vaccine on May 1st.
Oh, I don't know if I'll have access to it. If I'm eligible, yes.
That's good because
We're recording, sweetie.
Vaccinated on that very day, then we're all fucking free.
We're all free. It's gonna be a while.
I know it's gonna be a while, but fucking finally, you know what I mean?
I know. It's getting tiring for us.
Well,
Anyways,
listen,
about
fam,
that.
we are at 2 hours and 45 minutes into this hour-long conversation.
It's like,
But we haven't done this in a couple weeks, and the last 2 weeks we haven't really pulled off a meeting. So I've loved this. I've much enjoyed this. I'm glad we covered a lot of ground. There hasn't been anything up on P4P really relevant to any type of thoughts or analysis of the Biden administration. So I'm glad that we had an opportunity to do at least a little bit of that. Yeah, this was awesome. Is there, unless anybody else has any closing thoughts or...
You're gonna hate me, but has anybody been following the Chauvin trial?
Oh, that's right. We were going to talk about Chauvin. I watched a little bit of jury selection. So no, I haven't been watching it that closely. Unicorn, for people who don't know, Unicorn Riot is live streaming from inside the courtroom every day for like 7 hours. But it's been all jury selection, right? I plan on watching a lot more closer when the actual trial hits. I have been hearing disturbing things coming. I've seen some disturbing things on Twitter about the jury selection, people that are actually watching it every day. Anyway, that's about what I know, Price.
Yeah, I suppose it's way too early to really weigh in on it. But is it true they, I don't know, blocked off the courthouse with barbed wire or some shit like that?
Yeah, that's been up for weeks in prep. Like layers of like fence with razor wire and then another fucking... not just one fence with razor wire. Then there's another one and another one. It's like locked down hard, man. When they sent 3 cops to the Capitol on January 6th, I think it was 3, maybe 4 that were there, state Capitol Police.
Yeah.
And that's fuck them for that, man. That says 2 things. It says one of 2 things. It says, one, we're going to acquit this motherfucker for murder. And we expect you people to freak out over it, which they would be, every human being that would freak out over it would be totally justified for it. Or it's a way to demonize people that have been affected by the murder of George Floyd. Like, we're irrational and we're going to do violence and riot to the state. There's no reason to believe that we're going to do that. Like, this preemptive preparation for mostly, and it's that, maybe, you know what, I should retract that a little bit. It's not us, it's not we, it's black people. It's a massive insult to black people.
It's definitely a statement.
Yeah. You gonna say something, Kate?
I was, but don't worry about it.
Good.
But yeah, I definitely plan on watching once that trial kicks off. And you know, I don't know if they're gonna bring in that third murder charge against him, which was, what was it specifically? That was serious.
It was. That's what delayed the jury selection. I can't remember.
I mean, when they definitely want to get some type of convictions, they stack charges on you. I mean, so it's only 3 charges. You know, you hear a lot of people, they'll get 1 charge or something, and then they get picked up and sent to county, and then 2 days later they get ad booked with like 15 more charges that the court is most likely going to drop almost every one of them, but it raises bail up and fucking but it also means that they're ultimately going to get you on something. Now, it's only 3 charges against this murdering fucking piece of shit pig, but that's a little more than what we've seen in the past, right? So I don't know.
So it's the third degree murder charge.
There it is. On top of homicide and manslaughter. I mean, what? I don't know. We'll see.
I picked an article that doesn't list the other charges for whatever.
Oh, fuck Derek Chauvin. How's that? That's my final thoughts. Fuck that murdering pig piece of shit.
However, if they let him just go, they acquit him. You think last summer was bad? And yeah, I mean, people want to be safe because of COVID-19, but it's going to change if that happens. What happened after those pigs with Rodney King?
I stand by it that we might still see. We might not be as asleep as we think. I know I could be proven wrong, but I think once we get over the major hurdle of COVID, we might start seeing some more mass mobilizations. We might. I hope I'm right.
I hope you're right.
I know that there has been actions that I said, nope, I'm just not going. I'm just not. And the few times I have been out in the last year, it was kind of like, one of them was a bunch of fucking anti-masker Q people that organized in downtown Reno, and there's just no way I wasn't going to go and talk shit. There's just no way. I'm not going to allow that to just stand in my town. No fucking way. And I knew nobody else in Reno would go confront him, so I went and did it. But like, and there was in the first week of the BLM uprisings, not the BLM, in the George Floyd uprisings, I went to a BLM action in downtown Reno. But like, I have purposefully not gone to stuff because I'm deeply conflicted on it. I'm not judging people who go out and march during COVID at all, okay? Because the vast majority of the people on the left are incredibly careful, and they're taking a lot of precautions. I know I'm anxious to get out.
I haven't been out since a few months before COVID for any kind of an event or action.
So anyway, any other closing thoughts, fam?
I'm good.
Okay.
Price is good. I'm good.
Well, I appreciate y'all. I had a good chat. I enjoyed this.
I think I have a thing.
I did too.
You had a last thing, did you say, Kate?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do. Which is actually related to the Biden administration as well, which is that George Floyd bill that like went through. That increased federal funding for one, but two was a meaningless ban on chokeholds that wouldn't have done anything in terms of like George Floyd, right? Because one, it assumes the police would follow the law, which they don't do that. But two, and more importantly, like George Floyd wasn't killed by a chokehold. Somebody like kneeled on him until he died.
But wasn't it already considered illegal in the by the police force? Wasn't it outlawed by the police force that used it on Eric Garner?
Yeah, it was already.
It was already officially on police record that it was outlawed, right? Didn't stop them.
They don't care that that's not allowed. Like they'll get away with it anyway.
Right.
And they just a couple months ago, and it could have been 4 weeks ago. I'm not sure. They did the same thing in San Diego. So there you go.
And that is so deeply, deeply disgusting and offensive to invoke his name, to raise more funds for the gang, the racist gang that murdered him. That's so typically America, man. That's so typically America. That is historic. That is what America is we murder a man and then name a law where we get more funding to do it to other people after the person we murdered. That's America.
Brady bill.
On that note.
No, I just had a brain fade again. Damn it. I forgot what the hell you were talking about. Oh, isn't it the Israelis train police force in certain tactics, and I believe that is one of them, the knee on the neck.
I believe that we reported that at the time. That yes, that there is actual hands-on, one-on-one training with IDF forces, training, doing seminars and stuff with law enforcement in America.
I believe it was a private security firm that has a revolving door with the IDF. To be technical.
That but 1 degree of separation, right? Yeah.
Right.
That's why the pictures from Palestine look so much the same as the pictures from here.
It's all Western imperialist capitalism, fam. It's all fascism. It's all the same machine. We think that they try to tell us that there's borders. They don't adhere to those borders. They expect us to. They try to keep us confined in it while they move freely about, spreading their fucking oppression. Their murder. It's fucking so gross. Anyway, absolutely. I love you, fam.
Love you too.
Love you too.
Let's do this again next week. And so I should probably say, since people watch this, dude, you got all the way through this? Big ups. Much love, thanks, and appreciation to you for watching these 3 hours. And what I always say, much love, thanks, and appreciation to anybody, everybody who does what they can, when they can, to get up and out in an effort to make life better for other people, because it makes a difference and it does matter. And much love, thanks, and appreciation to all y'all here in P4P too.
Yeah,
bye, fam.
Much love. All power to the people.
All power to the people.
In words of my favorite ASMR. Death to America.
Yeah.
Actually, how about on 3, Death to America? 1, 2, 3. Death to America. That was not good. We totally fucking flailed that horribly. That was the worst in unison Death to America ever.
I could have made my voice way deeper, and I didn't.
Yeah. We're going to work on that over the next week. And we'll see you on Fam Chat next week, fam. Later.
All right. Talk to you soon.